Hi and welcome back to my channel. I'm Kim, and in today's video we're going to talk about the differences between Missä, Mistä and Mihin. This video is split into 9 parts. First we're going to start with a short introduction, then in chapter 2 we're going to focus on how to answer to a Missä question by either using the inassive or the additive case in our answers. In chapter 3 then we are going to learn how to answer to a Mistä question by using the elative or the ablative case, followed by chapter 4 where we're going to carry on with the Mihin questions. Here we're going to focus on the elative case as well as on the allative case. Then in chapter 5 we will have a short repetition before we carry on with chapter 6 where we're going to focus on how to use the Missä, Mistä and Mihin forms with specific cities or countries. In chapter 7 then we are going to learn some different expressions, like for example how to say that we are at home, at someone's place, or that we are going out. Then in chapter 8 we are going through some example sentences, and at the end of this video we will as always practice what we've learned today by solving some exercises together. So let's go. Missä, Mistä and Mihin are inflected forms of the pronoun mikä. Mikä means what? Missä means where, it's the inassive case of mikä, and it only refers to questions about static locations. Then we have mistä, which means where from. It's the elative case of mikä, and it refers to a movement away from a location. And then our third one is mihin, which means where to. It's the elative case of mikä, and it refers to a movement towards a location. Now to better see the differences, let's take a look at some examples. When we get asked missä sinä asut, which means where do you live, then we can for example answer minä asun Suomessa. Minä asun Suomessa means I live in Finland. Minä means I. Asun is the first person singular present tense of the verb asua, which means to live, and Suomessa means in Finland. It's the inassive case of Suomi, meaning Finland. Let's repeat. Missä sinä asut? Minä asun Suomessa. Where do you live? I live in Finland. Now when someone is asking you, mistä sinä olet kotoisin, which means where are you from, then depending on where you are from, you can for example answer minä olen kotoisin Norjasta. Minä olen kotoisin Norjasta, which means I'm from Norway. Mistä sinä olet kotoisin? Minä olen kotoisin Norjasta. Now of course you can also get the question, mistä sinä tulet, which means where are you coming from, in the sense of from which building or from which place are you coming from. Here you can for example answer minä tulen kaupasta. Minä tulen kaupasta, which means I'm coming from the store. Minä tulen means I come. Minä means I. Tulen is the first person singular present tense of the verb tulla, which means to come. And kaupasta means from the store. It's the elative case of kauppa, which means shop or store. And then we have the question mihin, which means where to. For example, mihin sinä matkustat? Mihin sinä matkustat means where do you travel to? Now depending on your destination, you can for example say minä matkustan Saksaan, which means I'm traveling to Germany. Minä matkustan means I travel. Matkustan is the first person singular present tense of the verb matkustaa, which means to travel, and Saksaan is the elative case of Saksa, which means Germany. So let's repeat. Mihin sinä matkustat? Where do you travel to? Minä matkustan Saksaan. I'm traveling to Germany. Alright, now let's focus on the details. Let's start with missä. As already mentioned before, missä means where, and it is used when we want to ask where something or someone is. To answer to a missä question, we have to decide either between the inassive case or the additive case. But how do we know if we need the inassive or additive case? When we are inside a building or an enclosed area, then we use the inassive case. The inassive marker is sa or se, which we have to add to the weak stem of our word. Or we can also answer with the additive case, which is used and only used with open areas or when something is on something. What it means we're going to learn in a minute. Now let's start with some easy missä examples that require the inassive case when we want to answer to the question. So here's our first one. Lasse on kirjastossa. Lasse on kirjastossa means Lasse is in the library. So when someone is asking where is Lasse, then we can say Lasse on kirjastossa. Kirjastossa means in the library. It's the inessive case of kirjasto. Here we use the inessive case because a library is a building. Let's repeat. Lasse on kirjastossa. Lasse is in the library. Next one. Amy istuu bussissa. Amy istuu bussissa means Amy is sitting in the bus. Istuu, here is our third person singular present tense of the verb istua, which means to sit, and bussissa is the inessive case of bussi, which means bus. Here we need the inessive case because a bus is an enclosed area. So let's repeat. Amy istuu bussissa. Amy is sitting in the bus. Now, to get a bit more of a feeling for it, let's take some casual places and see how to answer when we get asked where we are now. So, if you're in a restaurant, which is ravintola in Finnish, then you can say minä olen ravintolassa, which means I'm in a restaurant. We carry on. Koulu, which means school, will be koulussa. Lentokone means airplane. This one changes to lentokoneessa, which means in the airplane. Suihku means shower, changes to suihkussa, which means in the shower. Keittiö means kitchen, changes to keittiössä, which means in the kitchen. Baari means bar, changes to baarissa, which means in the bar. Kahvila means coffee shop, changes to kahvilassa, meaning in the coffee shop. Or we also have pankki, which means bank, changes to pankissa. Here we have the consonant gradation, by the way. So the double K changes to 1K. Next one, kauppa means store or shop, changes to kaupassa. Also here we have the consonant gradation. And our last one, leipomo, which means bakery, changes to leipomossa, literally meaning in the bakery. So for all these places we have to use the inessive case because they are buildings or enclosed areas, and that also means we either have to add sa or se to the weak stem in order to answer to the Missä question. Now let's take a look at some examples that require the adhesive case for answering. Remember, the marker of the adhesive case is la or le, which we also have to add to the weak stem of our word, and we answer with the adhesive case when we are at an open place or at a not enclosed area. Here's our first example. Minä olen torilla means I'm at the market. A market is usually an open place, so that means we have to use the adhesive case here. Minä olen, I am, torilla, at the market. Torilla is the adhesive case of tori, which means market. Minä olen torilla. Next example. Jussi seisoo pysäkillä means Jussi is standing at the stop. And such a stop is also a place outside, so that's why we also have to use here again the adhesive case. Jussi is a Finnish male name. Seisoo here is the third person singular present tense of the verb seisoa, which means to stand, and pysäkillä means at the stop. It's the adhesive case of pysäkki, which means a stop. Here we have the consonant gradation, the double K changes to 1K. So let's repeat. Jussi seisoo pysäkillä. Jussi is standing at the stop. Now, as already mentioned before, we also use the adhesive case when something is on something. Like for example here, lautaset ovat pöydällä means the plates are on the table. Lautaset means the plates. It's T plural here because here we are talking about a specific amount of plates. Ovat is the third person plural of the verb olla, which means to be, and pöydällä means on the table. It's the adhesive case of pöytä, which means table. So let's repeat. Lautaset ovat pöydällä. Lautaset ovat pöydällä. The plates are on the table. Let's have one more example. Kissa nukkuu sohvalla means the cat sleeps on the sofa, or the cat is sleeping on the sofa. So kissa means cat, nukkuu is the third person singular present tense of the verb nukkua, which means to sleep, and sohvalla means on the sofa. It's the adhesive case of sohva, which means sofa or couch. So let's repeat again. Kissa nukkuu sohvalla. The cat is sleeping on the sofa. Now let's take a look at some more examples where we rather use the adhesive case when we want to say that we are at those places. So at the kiosk, which is kioski in Finnish, becomes kioskilla, which means at the kiosk. Piha, which means yard, becomes pihalla. Tori, which means market, becomes torilla, at the market. Mökki, which means cottage, becomes mökillä, which means at the cottage. Kurssi, which means course, becomes kurssilla. Then we have ranta, which means beach, becomes ranalla, which means at the beach. Bussiasema means bus station, becomes bussiasemalla, which means at the bus station. Then we have golfkenttä, which means golf course, becomes golfkentällä, which means at the golf course. And our last one, tie, which means road, becomes tiellä, which means on the road. So as you see, all these places mentioned now are located outside, so that's why we have to use the adhesive case here. And let's not forget, we also use the adhesive case when we want to say that something is on something. For example, on the table is pöydällä. Its basic form is pöytä and it changes to pöydällä, which means on the table. Or hylly, which means shelf, changes to hyllyllä, which means on the shelf, and lattia, which means floor, changes to lattialla, which means on the floor, and so on. Now, sometimes you will also come across the verb käydä, which actually has many meanings. The most common ones are to go or to visit. Here we are going to focus on its translation as to go, in the sense of going somewhere and staying there for a short time. The rule is pretty easy. Käydä plus missä, which means that the place we are going to, in combination with the verb käydä, has to stand either in the inessive case or adhesive case. Here are two examples. Joskus minä käyn museossa means sometimes I go to a museum. So joskus means sometimes, minä I, käyn means here I go. It's the first person singular present tense of the verb käydä, and museossa here is the inessive case of museo, which means museum. So as you see here in the sentence, we have the verb käydä. That's why we have to put the location we are going to into the inessive case, which is why we say museossa. Let's repeat. Joskus minä käyn museossa. Sometimes I go to a museum. Let's have one more example. Lasse kävi kirjastossa. Lasse kävi kirjastossa means Lasse went to the library. So kävi here is the third person singular past tense of the verb käydä, and kirjastossa here is the inessive case of kirjasto, which means library. Again, because we have here in this sentence the verb käydä, the library has to stand in the inessive case, which is why we say kirjastossa. Let's repeat. Lasse kävi kirjastossa. Lasse went to the library. Now, depending on the place, käydä can also of course appear with the adhesive case. This one we need with open places. For example, Lasse käy torilla means Lasse goes to the market. A market is an open place, so that's why we have to put tori, which means market, into the adhesive case here. Or our next example, kävin rannalla means I have been at the beach or I went to the beach. So here we kind of have a flexible translation. Kävin is the first person singular past tense of the verb käydä, which means I went. Rannalla is the adhesive case of ranta, which means beach. Kävin rannalla. Alright, so let's sum up how to answer when we get a missä question. So again, missä means where, and we can either answer with the inessive case when we are inside a building or an enclosed area, for example, kirjastossa or bussissa, or we can answer with the adhesive case when we are at an open place, for example, torilla, which means at the market, or we can also use the adhesive case when something is on something, for example, pöydällä. Lautaset ovat pöydällä, which means the plates are on the table. Alright, now let's carry on with chapter 3, Mistä. Mistä means where from or from where, and in order to answer to that question, we have to decide either between the elative case or the ablative case. How do we know which one of them we have to use? We gotta have to use the elative case when we want to describe a movement away from the inside. for example, koulusta, which means out of school. So I was inside the school and then I went out of the school. So that's when we say koulusta. The elative mark we also have to add to the weak stem of a word. However, we also have the ablative case, which is used when we want to describe a movement away from an open place, away from a surface, or not an enclosed area. For example, torilta, which means away from the market. A market is an open place, and I was at the market and now I'm leaving the market, so that's why we need the ablative case here. The marker of the ablative case is LTA or LTE, which we also have to add to the weak stem of a word. Alright, let's focus on some examples of the elative case for now. Jussi tulee postista means Jussi is coming from the post office. So tulee is the third person singular present tense of the verb tulla, which means to come, and postista means from the post. It's the elative case of posti. Here we need the elative case because a post office is a building. Jussi tulee postista. Or minä tulin eilen Norjasta means I came yesterday from Norway. Minä tulin means I came. It's the first person singular past tense of the verb tulla, which means to come. Eilen means yesterday and Norjasta means from Norway. Minä tulin eilen Norjasta. Next one. Lasse nousee bussista can be translated as Lasse gets off the bus. Actually, the verb nousta means to rise or to get up, but it sounds more natural to just say Lasse gets off the bus. Lasse nousee bussista. Lasse gets off the bus. Alright, now let's take a look at some more buildings or enclosed areas in the elative case. So when we want to say, for example, that we are living a bar, then baari becomes baarista. Or koulu becomes koulusta. Talo, which means house, becomes talosta. Keittiö becomes keittiöstä. Bussi, bussista. Toimisto, which means office, becomes toimistosta. Posti, which means post or post office, becomes postista. Museo becomes museosta, and Helsinki becomes Helsingistä. Here we have the consonant gradation. NK changes to NG. Now, sometimes in order to answer to a Mistä question, we have to use the ablative case instead. This case is required when we want to say that we are moving away from an open area or that we're taking something away from a surface and so on. For example, minä tulen torilta. Minä tulen torilta means I'm coming from the market. Or bussi lähtee asemalta. Bussi lähtee asemalta means the bus leaves from the station. Lähtee, here is the third person singular present tense of the verb lähtee, which means to leave, and asemalta means from the station. It's the ablative case of asema, which means station. Bussi lähtee asemalta. The bus leaves from the station. And talking about surfaces, here we have another example. Otan kirjat pöydältä means I take the books from the table. So the books were on the table and I take them away. So that's when we say otan kirjat pöydältä. I take the books from the table. Otan means I take. It's the first person singular present tense of the verb otta, which means to take. Kirjat means the books, T plural here because we're talking about a specific amount of books. And pöydältä is the ablative case of pöytä, which means table. Here we use the ablative case because we're talking about a surface. Otan kirjat pöydältä. I take the books away from the table. Now again, let's take a quick look at some common open places or not enclosed areas in the ablative case. So tori becomes torilta. Pöytä becomes pöydältä. Asema asemalta. Latja latjalta. Kioski kioskilta. Terassi becomes terassilta. Pysäkki becomes pysäkiltä. Ranta becomes ranalta, and piha becomes pihalta. Now let's take a look at two interesting verb corrections. Our first one is löytää plus Mistä. Löytää means to find. So in Finnish, when we want to say that we have found something somewhere, then the place where we found something has to stand either in the elative case or the ablative case. Here's our first example. Lasse löysi avaimen taskusta means Lasse found the key in the pocket. So löysi is the third person singular past tense of the verb löytää, which means to find. Avaimen means key, and it's standing here in the genitive case, followed by taskusta, which is the elative case of tasku, which means pocket. So in English we say Lasse found the key in the pocket. However, the structure in Finnish is that Lasse found the key from the pocket. So here we have to think differently. Let's repeat. Lasse löysi avaimen taskusta. Lasse found the key in the pocket. Let's take one more example. Minä löysin lehden hyllyltä means I found the magazine on the shelf. So minä means I. Löysin is the first person singular past tense of the verb löytää, which means to find. Lehden here is the genitive case of lehti, which means newspaper, and hyllyltä is the ablative case of hylly, which means shelf. So let's repeat. Minä löysin lehden hyllyltä. I found the magazine on the shelf. Now let's take a look at another verb, which is ostaa, meaning to buy. Minä ostan kahvia kaupasta. Literally means I buy coffee from the store. So minä ostan means I buy or I'm buying. Ostan is the first person singular present tense of the verb ostaa, which means to buy. Kahvia means coffee, standing here in the partitive case because we are talking here about an unspecified amount of coffee. And kaupasta here is the elative case of kauppa, meaning store. Here we use the elative case because the store is a building. So let's repeat. Minä ostan kahvia kaupasta. Literally translated as I buy coffee from the store. In English or in German we rather say I am buying coffee in the store. However, in Finnish we have to think differently. Here we have to say I'm buying coffee from the store. Minä ostan kahvia kaupasta. Let's take another example. Ostin omenat torilta. Ostin omenat torilta means I bought the apples from the market. So ostin means I bought. It's the first person singular past tense of the verb ostaa. Omenat means the apples. Here we are talking about a specific amount of apples. That's why we use T plural here for the apples. And torilta means from the market, ablative case. Why ablative case? Because a market is an open place. So let's repeat. Ostin omenat torilta. Literally translated as I bought the apples from the market. Nice. So let's sum up how to answer to a Mistä question. Again, Mistä means where from or from where. And we can either answer with the elative case, which has the marker sta or ste, when we want to, for example, describe a movement away from the inside. For example, talosta. Or we answer with the ablative case with the marker LTA or LTA in order to express a movement away from an open place, like for example torilta, away from the market, or from a surface, like pöydältä, which means away from the table. Now let's carry on with chapter 4, Mihin. Mihin means where to and is the elative case of mikä. In order to answer to a mihin question, we have to decide either between the elative case or the allative case. Now, how do we know which one of these two cases we have to use? We use the elative case when we want to describe a movement towards or inwards something. For example, minä menen kauppaan. I'm going to the store. So kauppaan here is the elative case of kauppa. And the reason why we need the elative case here is because a shop or a store is a building and we're going inside. So that's why we say minä menen kauppaan. I'm going to the store. Or we can also use the allative case, however, only when we want to describe a movement towards an open place, a surface, or not an enclosed area. For example, pöydälle, which means onto the table. Now, as just mentioned before, when we get a mihin question, we can answer with the elative case when we are moving towards or inwards a building. Now, the thing is, the elative case can take 3 different endings. These are either vowel N, H vowel N, or the san ending, which we have to add to the strong stem of our word. So before we carry on with the Mihin examples, let's take a quick look at how to form the ilative case, because this one works a bit different than the other cases. So rule number 1, when our stem ends in one vowel, then we have to double the last vowel of the stem and also add an extra N to it. Let's take a look at one example. Talo means house. So in order to form the ilative case of it, we first have to find the stem, which is also talo. Then in the second step, we have to double the last vowel of the stem, which is actually O. So that means we have talo plus O, and we get talo with a double O. And then in our third and final step, we have to add N, which means we have talo with a double O plus N, and we get talon, which is the ilative case of talo, and it means to or into the house. So here our ilative ending is the vowel N ending. Now the second ending, rule number 2, is the H vowel N ending. This ending is used for words consisting of one syllable ending in two same vowels. For example, when we take a look at the word puu, which means tree. So in our first step, we have to add the letter H to our word. So that means we have puu plus H and we get puu. Then in step number 2, we add here the vowel U to it and we get puhu. Then in step number 3, we add an extra N to it. So that means we have puhu plus N and we get puhun, which is our ilative case here. And the third ilative ending is san, which we add to stems consisting of 2 or 3 syllables ending in 2 same vowels. Here's one example, espo. In the first step, we have to find a stem, which is also espo. Then in the second step, we actually have to add san to it. So that means we have espo plus san, and we get espo san, which means to espo. This is our ilative case with the ending san. And that's pretty much all we need to know about how to form the ilative case for now. Let's get back to our topic again, the Mihin question and how to answer to it. So let's take a look at some possible answers with the ilative case. Mihin sinä menet means where do you go? Here we can, for example, answer minä menen kouluun, means I'm going to school. Minä menen means I'm going or I go. Kouluun means to school. It's the ilative case. Here we have the vowel N ending. Let's repeat. Mihin sinä menet? Where do you go? Minä menen kouluun. I'm going to school. Next example. Joulukuussa aion matkustaa Norjaan. Means in December I plan to travel to Norway. Joulukuussa means in December, inassive case. Aion means I plan. It's the first person singular present tense of the verb aikoa, which means to intend to or to plan to. Matkustaa here standing in its infinitive form, and it means to travel. And where do I plan to travel to? To Norway. That's why we need the ilative case here and say Norjaan. Joulukuussa aion matkustaa Norjaan. In December I plan to travel to Norway. Now let's take a look at some more examples in the ilative case. Tukholma, which means Stockholm, changes to Tukholmaan. Lontoo, which means London, changes to Lontooseen, to London. Kirjasto changes to Kirjastoon, into the library or to the library. Pankki, which means bank, changes to pankkiin, which means to the bank or into the bank. Here it's important to mention that for the ilative case we always use the strong grade. So that's why the double K doesn't change here. Also same with kauppa, which means store, changes to kauppaan, to the store or into the store. Thaimaa, which means Thailand, changes to Thaimahaan. Here we have the H vowel N ending. Or terveyskeskus, which means health center, changes to terveyskeskukseen, meaning into or to the health center. Or kitchen, which is keittiö, changes to keittiöön, into the kitchen. So for all of these places we use the ilative case. Now, sometimes in order to answer to a Mihin question, we rather have to use the allative case instead. This case is required when we want to express a movement towards an open area or a surface. For example, Mihin sinä menet? Where do you go? Menen torille means I'm going to the market. Or laitaan kirjan pöydälle means I put the book onto the table. Laitaan is the first person singular present tense of the verb laittaa, which means to put. Kirjan here is standing in the genitive case, meaning the book, and pöydälle here is standing in the allative case because we want to say onto the table. I put the book onto the table. Laitan kirjan pöydälle. Alright, again, let's take a quick look at some common open places, surfaces, or not enclosed areas in the allative case. So, tori becomes torille. Kioski becomes kioskille. Asema becomes asemalle. Piha becomes pihalle. And pöytä becomes pöydälle. Now, let's take again a look at two interesting verb actions. Our first one is jäädä, which means to stay or to remain. So in Finnish, when we want to say that we stay somewhere, then the place where we are going to stay at has to stand either in the illative case or the allative case. Here's one example. Aion jäädä Norjaan means I intend to stay in Norway. So again, aion is the first person singular present tense of the verb aikoa, which means to intend or to plan to. Jäädä means to stay. Here it's standing in its infinitive form. And Norjaan here is the illative case of Norja. Why do we use here the illative case? Because of the verb jäädä. So let's repeat. Aion jäädä Norjaan. I intend to stay in Norway. Or let's take another one. Lasse haluaa jäädä kotiin means Lasse wants to stay at home. So haluaa here is the third person singular present tense of the verb haluta, which means to want. Jäädä here again means to stay or to remain. It's standing here in its infinitive form, and kotiin is the illative case of koti. Why do we need the illative case again? Because of the verb jäädä. So let's repeat. Lasse haluaa jäädä kotiin. Lasse wants to stay at home. Now let's take a look at another verb, which is unohtaa, meaning to forget. In Finnish, when we want to say we forgot something somewhere, then the place where we forgot something has to stand in the illative case or the allative case. Here's one example. Lasse unohtaa kirjan kotiin means Lasse forgets the book at home. So unohtaa, here's the third person singular of the verb unohtaa, which means to forget. Kirjan here standing in the genitive case, meaning the book, and kotiin here is the illative case of koti. Lasse unohtaa kirjan kotiin. Lasse forgets the book at home. Nice! So let's sum up what we have to do when we get a mihin question. So again, mihin means where to, and we can either answer with the illative case when we want to, for example, describe a movement towards something, for example, kirjastoon or taloon. Or we answer with the allative case with its marker le in order to express a movement towards an open place or a surface. For example, torille or pöydälle. Alright, so this might have been a lot of new input, I guess. So now let's go quickly through a repetition before we carry on with the other chapters. So, as we know, the most common questions referring to locations do begin either with mihin, missä, or mistä. So now we are going to compare the answers for each of the questions, and to keep it simple I only choose two locations, one that is a building, kauppa, meaning store, and one that is an open place, tori, which means market. So when we get asked, mihin sinä menet, we can either answer, for example, minä menen kauppaan, or minä menen torille. But when we get asked, missä sinä olet, where are you? We answer, minä olen kaupassa, or minä olen torilla. And when someone is asking us, mistä sinä tulet? Where are you coming from? Then we can say, minä tulen kaupasta, or minä tulen torilta. Alright, that was the repetition. Now let's carry on with chapter 6, where we're going through some random city and country names. So when we want to say that we're going or traveling somewhere, then we usually use the illative case. For example, matkustan Saksaan, Norjaan, or Japaniin. I'm traveling to Germany, Norway, or Japan. However, sometimes there are countries or cities where we instead have to use the allative case. For example, when you want to say that you're going to Tampere, then you'd say menen Tampereelle. Or if you want to say I'm going to Rovaniemi, then you would say menen Rovaniemelle. Or if you go to Vantaa, then you'd say minä menen Vantaalle. I'm going to Vantaa. Let's take some more examples. Minä matkustan New Yorkiin means I'm traveling to New York. Minä matkustan New Yorkiin. I'm traveling to New York. And by the way, if you want to say that you live in Vantaa, then you'd say asun Vantaalla. Or minä asun Rovaniemellä. I live in Rovaniemi. Or minä asun Tampereella. I live in Tampere. Or minä asun Raumalla. I live in Rauma. Or one more, minä asun Ahvenanmaalla. Alright? However, most of the time when we want to say that we live somewhere, we just have to use the inessive case. For example, if you want to say that you're living in Turku, then you say asun Turussa. Or asun Porissa. Asun Sodankylässä. Or asun Helsingissä. Remember, the inessive case is affected by the consonant gradation. Now let's take a look at some other places. For example, Maldives in Finnish is Maledivit. And when we want to say on the Maldives, then we say Malediveilla. Seychelles in Finnish is Seychellit. And when we want to put it into the adjective case, then it is Seycheleillä. We carry on. Hawaii in Finnish is Hawaii. And the adjective case is Hawaiilla. Then we also have the Azores. In Finnish it's Azorit. And the adjective case is Azoreilla. Or when we prefer the colder destinations, Faroe Islands, Färsaaret. And its adjective case is Färsaarilla. Alright, now we carry on with chapter 7. Here we are going to learn how to say in Finnish, I'm going home, I'm at home, or I'm leaving home. I'm going home, minä menen kotiin. I'm at home, minä olen kotona. I'm leaving home, minä lähden kotoa. Let's repeat. I'm going home, minä menen kotiin. I'm at home, minä olen kotona. I'm leaving home, minä lähden kotoa. Next one, I'm going out or I'm going outside is minä menen ulos. I'm outside is minä olen ulkona. And I'm coming from the outside is minä tulen ulkoa. Let's repeat. I'm going out or I'm going outside. Minä menen ulos. I'm outside. Minä olen ulkona. I'm coming from the outside. Minä tulen ulkoa. And our third one. This one is about going to someone's place, being at someone's place and coming from someone's place. So let's take a look at one example. Minä menen Pekan luokse. Minä menen Pekan luokse means I'm going to Pekka's place. So here we are describing a movement towards Pekka's place. What's important here, the person, which is Pekka here, has to stand in a genitive case, which is why we say Pekan, plus luokse. Minä menen Pekan luokse. I'm going to Pekka's place. Next one. Minä olen Pekan luona. Minä olen Pekan luona means I'm at Pekka's place, here static location. Also the rule here is the person has to stand in a genitive case plus luona. Minä olen Pekan luona. I'm at Pekka's place. And when we want to say I'm coming from Pekka's place, then we say minä tulen Pekan luota. Minä tulen Pekan luota. I'm coming from Pekka's place. Here we are describing a movement away from Pekka's place. Minä tulen Pekan luota. I'm coming from Pekka's place. So let's repeat again. Minä menen Pekan luokse means I'm going to Pekka's place. Or I'm going to Pekka's. Minä olen Pekan luona means I'm at Pekka's place or I'm at Pekka's. And minä tulen Pekan luota means I'm coming from Pekka's place or I'm coming from Pekka's. Alright, now we arrived at chapter 8, where we are going through some example sentences. Our first one is Jussi asuu nyt Helsingissä. This is a sentence that answers to a Missä question, and it means Jussi lives now in Helsinki. Asuu is the third person singular present tense of the verb asua, which means to live. Nyt means now, and Helsingissä is the inessive case of Helsinki, meaning in Helsinki. Jussi asuu nyt Helsingissä. Jussi lives now in Helsinki. Next one. Amy unohti avaimet pöydällä. Amy forgot the keys on the table. Remember, unohta is a verb that requires either the illative case or the allative case. Here we have to use the allative case, so that's why we say pöydällä. Amy unohti avaimet pöydällä. Amy forgot the keys on the table. Next one. Ostin kirjan kirjakaupasta means I bought a book or I bought the book from the bookstore. Also here remember the verb osta. When we want to say where from we bought something, then we have to use either the allative case or the ablative case. Here we need the allative case because a bookstore is a building. So that's why we say kirjakaupasta. Ostin means I bought. It's the first person singular past tense of the verb osta, which means to buy. Ostin kirjan kirjakaupasta. Next one. Minä käyn joka aamu suihkussa means I take every morning a shower. Minä käyn can be translated as I go. Joka aamu means every morning suihkussa. Here we need the inessive case because of our verb käydä. The rule is käydä plus inessive. Minä käyn joka aamu suihkussa. I take every morning a shower. Next one. Minä ostin omenat vanhalta torilta means I bought the apples from the old market. Minä ostin, I bought. Again, ostin is the first person singular past tense of the verb osta, which means to buy. Omenat, the apples. Here we are talking about a specific amount of apples, which is why we have to use the T plural or nominative plural here. Vanhalta torilta means from the old market. Here we use the ablative case because the market is an open place. Why do we actually have vanhalta here? Vanhalta is the ablative case of vanha, which means old, and since it's referring to the market, which is tori in Finnish, we also have to put it into the ablative case. Let's repeat. Minä ostin omenat vanhalta torilta. I bought the apples from the old market. Next one. Bussi saapuu Saksaan means the bus arrives in Germany. Literally it means the bus arrives to Germany. However, it sounds more natural to say in English, the bus arrives in Germany. Bussi means bus. Saapuu is the third person singular present tense of the verb saapua, which means to arrive. And here then we need the illative case of Saksa, which is Saksaan. Bussi saapuu Saksaan. The bus arrives in Germany, or literally to Germany. Next one. Jussi juoksee usein illalla 6 kilometriä puistossa. Means Jussi often runs in the evening 6 kilometers in the park. So Jussi juoksee means Jussi runs. Juoksee is the third person singular present tense of the verb juosta, which means to run. Usein, often. Illalla means in the evening. 6 kilometriä, 6 kilometers. Here we have the partitive case. Kilometria is the partitive case here. Why? Because it's following a number which is 6, and puistossa is the inessive case of puisto, which means park. Why do we need the inessive case here? Because we want to say where is Jussi running. One more thing to mention is that a park or also a forest are both places that are actually outside. However, when we want to say that we are in a park or in a forest, then we still gotta have to use the inessive case, even though following the rules, the adjective case would have made more sense here. So when we want to say I'm in the park, then we say minä olen puistossa. And when we want to say I'm in the forest, then we say olen metsässä. Next one. Leena matkustaa Saksaan means Lena travels to Germany. If you have already learned a little bit more about the adjective case, then we can, for example, also say Leena matkustaa lentokoneella Saksaan, which would mean Leena travels to Germany by plane. So lentokoneella is the adjective case of lentokone, which means airplane. Why does the airplane stand here in the adjective case? Because in Finnish, when we want to say that we travel by something specific, for example by car, by a ship, or by an airplane, then we have to use the adjective case. However, this is a topic we will discuss in a separate video. So let's repeat again. Leena matkustaa Saksaan. Leena travels to Germany. Or Leena matkustaa lentokoneella Saksaan. In English, Leena travels to Germany by plane. And our last example before we carry on with our next chapter. Mistä sinä tulet ja mihin sinä menet? Means where do you come from and where are you going to? Mistä sinä tulet? Where are you coming from? Ja, and mihin sinä menet? Where do you go to? Mistä sinä tulet ja mihin sinä menet? Alright, now we carry on to our last chapter for today, the exercises and solutions. We have 9 exercises for today. For each answer we have 5 seconds. Remember, if you need more time, you can always pause the video. Alright, so let's start with our first one. We wanna say, I'm going to the store. Store in Finnish is kauppa. So what we have to do here is to fill in the gap, which means we gotta have to put kauppa into the right case. So I'm going to the store is minä menen. What do we have to fill in? That's right, we have to fill in kauppaan, ilative case. Minä menen kauppaan. I'm going to the store. Next one, we wanna say I'm in the store. Olen. What do we have to fill in? That's right, it's kaupassa. Kaupassa, here we need the inassive case. Olen kaupassa or minä olen kaupassa. I'm in the store. Next one, we want to say I'm coming from the store. Tulen. What do we have to fill in? That's right, it's kaupasta, elative case. Tulen kaupasta. I'm coming from the store. Remember, a store is a building, so that's why we have to use the elative case. We carry on with the exercises 4 till 6. We want to say the cat is at home. Kissa on. What do we have to fill in? That's right, it's kissa on kotona. The cat is at home. Next one, we want to say I'm coming from Pekka's place. Tulen luota. In what case does Pekka have to stand? That's right, it has to be the genitive case, which is Pekkan. So our solution is tulen Pekkan luota. I'm coming from Pekka's place or I'm coming from Pekka's. Next one, we wanna say Matti is going out or he's going outside. Matti lähtee. Here you have 3 options. Do we need ulos, ulkona or ulkoa? Which one do we have to fill in? Perfect, it's ulos. Matti lähtee ulos. Matti is going out. Nice, now let's do 3 more exercises. Here we have some verb reactions. We wanna say sometimes I'm going to a museum or I'm visiting a museum. What do we have to fill in? Joskus minä käyn. Which case do we need here? That's right, it's the inassive case. Joskus minä käyn museossa. Museossa, inassive case. Inassive case because of käydä. Next one, we wanna say Lasse found the key in the pocket. Which case do we need here? Lasse löysi avaimen. Very good. Here we need the elative case, which is why we say taskusta. Taskusta. Lasse löysi avaimen taskusta. Lasse found the key in the pocket. Here we need the elative case because of löytää. And our last one for today. I intend to stay in Norway. Aion jäädä. Which case do we need here? That's right, we need the illative case, which is why we say Norjaan. Aion jäädä Norjaan. I intend to stay in Norway. Here we need the illative case because of the verb jäädä. That's pretty much it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to learn more Finnish, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Thank you so much for watching, have a nice day, and see you next time.